Hello and welcome back, most illustrious members of the Detail. I'm your host D, also known as MTF Doom on the internet, and today, hate floats. I hope you enjoy. Just before we get into it, as always, normal announcements. Please help me hit 500 subscribers so that I can reach more cool people. We had a wonderful reaction to the last video. I thanked everyone in Discord. I will thank you again. Anyone who watched that video especially. We had been asked to do more long form, especially like stream clip content. And I was unsure because that's not really my forte. I don't do quite so well sort of live and under pressure, as it were. So having such a positive reaction to that is really invigorating. I really appreciate it. I promise you'll have more, but not today. Today's like a regular ass video. I'm going to edit together something. This is also a promise that this will be the last strictly High Evolutionary video for a minute. I made an implicit promise much earlier in my YouTube career that I wouldn't be one of those like hype beast types that's like, yo, this new card is sick, it's so busted, because it like excludes a lot of people. Normally I wouldn't even do this many videos on a new card at all, but High Evo is so like wide open in what you can do with it that it feels warranted. And if this feels like indulgent, I apologize. This will be the last one. All right, getting into it. This is hate floats. This is what I've landed on. I've landed on 3 or 4 decks, but I wanted to cover Clips, Killjoy, and Grak all sent decks or had like quite a bit of input to different Evo decks that they wanted me to try. So I'm gonna cover those decks today. This just so we're all on the same page. If you're like just here kind of for a deck tech, this is the deck I've landed on as having the most success. This is the highest I've been since the first time I hit Infinite. This is the highest I've been in a really long time, especially because you only get 1 rank now. I think when you hit Infinite now, you just hit 100. You used to get to 105 automatically. So we're 8 ranks up from just having hit Infinite. So that's cool. Like, that's cool to me. I don't know. That's really cool. Okay. All right. So this deck is called Hate Floats. The idea is that it is hate cards in the form of location limitations in Spider-Man and Storm. We have the turn 6 counterplay. We have ongoing hate. We have difficult to get into location hate, though they removed 3 of the difficult to get into locations. So you have to put in the work now with Storm and Spider-Man to kind of do it yourself. Like, you make locations hard to get into. I think the game is better for it, just so we're clear, but just keep in mind, Doom used to have extra utility, and there are still some locations that are more difficult to get into than not, but he has less good locations now, or like less locations that just win you the game for playing Doom. And that's transphobic, honestly, because I'm Doom and they did this to me and I don't like that. Okay. And then we've got big stuff hate. So, and then the other part is that we are floating energy because of Sunspot, Hulk, and Cyclops. We want to float energy. What I've learned playing this deck is that you never Sunspot on 1, you always Sunspot on 2. You usually deploy Wasp the same turn that you wave, because in general you don't wave on 3, you wave on 4 or 5, and you're using it both as counterplay to your opponent doing a lot of stuff while simultaneously being able to float. We talked about that in the last video, but just in case. And then like some of the time all you do on 6 is like an Enchantress or a Shang, and it's good enough. And some, add in Wasp if you want to. Wasp to flavor. This deck is really good. It's, having just a Sunspot or a Cyclops alongside a Storm, usually enough to win you flooding, especially if you have the Doom. Like, you sometimes don't even need to commit a second card, because you'll just get Doom bots into flooding and be happy about it. Being able to limit how your opponent's going to play on, especially on turn 6, can be huge. You know, if they're trying to pop off and do all kinds of cool stuff and they like copied their hand with Moon Girl, like that sucks, doesn't it? So this is the deck I've been having the most, sort of the most fun with. It is, I'm not including, so sorry, Grackleflint. I'm not including the deck Grack sent me originally that ended up morphing into this, because it is different enough, and both of us kind of agree. We both played the deck he sent me and kind of came to the same conclusions of like what was and wasn't working, and this is sufficiently different, but I give him credit for putting me on this track and giving me these, like, you know, he was running like Rhino. He was doing this really, it was an interesting thing of playing Magic and Rhino and being able to like sometimes hit Limbo with Rhino, and I was like, well, why don't you do Storm? And then I was like, well, if you're doing Storm, why don't you do Spider-Man? Because Spider-Man's something you already want to play on 5. So it naturally floats 1 energy. Like, it just floats 1 energy when you play him on 5. So why not just play Spider-Man? And then, you know, we kind of came to this list somewhat together. So I give him credit, like, for putting me on that path, but this is sort of not exactly the list he sent, but we both agreed that one just was not working at the time. All right, then we've got Moonstorm. This is the other one that I have mostly come up with independently of Discord that I really wanted to make work. If you've never played like a turn 6 Moon Girl deck, it's really fun. Now, I miss having Bast, but we cannot play Bast with Abomination. Almost everything else is good here, right? Like, it's neutral to hit Shocker. It's not the worst to hit Moon Girl or High Evo, but hitting Abomination is just so bad that we cannot run Bast. We can't risk it. So what are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to Moon Girl on 4 and get a copy of probably Hitmonkey, possibly even a Hitmonkey that you've beasted back. Do not be afraid to just play Hitmonkey on 2, like value neutral Hitmonkey on 2, maybe with Wasp. Do not be afraid to beast it back on 3 if you're going to be able to get a copy of it on 4 with Moon Girl, because 1 cost Hitmonkeys win games. If you haven't seen my climb to infinite, it was with 1 cost Hitmonkeys mostly. So having 2 of them is incredible. Other than that, we're just reducing the cost of some stuff. We're still trying to do the funny thing where we like can play Wasp out and then Shocker and then beast them both back, having Shocker hit a different card. It doesn't always happen, but like, I think it's good enough. It's been good enough so far, and we've already noticed a downtick in Luke Cages, and if not a downtick in Luke Cages, what we've noticed is people not playing Luke Cage until 6, which is mostly smart. Like, you don't want to give your opponent the chance to Enchantress your Luke Cage. But it means that Abomination, because people are getting better at playing Luke Cage out, you have more opportunity to play Abomination for a reduced cost. And it doesn't have to be that reduced to be good, right? A 3-9 is, like, Maximus was considered too good for a while at a 3-7. You know, a 3-9, real good, it just is. There's no way around it. But ideally, you want to just copy a bunch of, like, you know, whatever. Kitty Pryde, Hitmonkey is a really good one. Ant-Man is really good because it represents a 1-4. Like, on turn 6, you're playing out 2 Ant-Mans, and they both count as, like, 1-4s. I don't know. The deck has felt really solid. But we do have a second iteration of it. Was it Killjoy? I believe it's Killjoy. I have been wrong before. Was it Clips? Oh, okay. This isn't quite the same, but it was Clips' deck that reminded me of this. And with the change we made, so Clips included some other, I think one more 4 cost, but I can't remember what, instead of Quinjet. But I think that, so this one's kind of trying to do the same thing. You're doing Zabu stuff. You're doing, trying to ramp into Moon Girl some of the time and just get like multiple Abominations, possibly multiple Wasps. But the point is, you're also running Zabu. So if you get double Enchantress or double Typhoid or double thing, you're like pretty happy with that. my big thing is that you can only play 2 of these 4 costs, even if you have Zabu on 6. And, like, you know, maybe Abomination if you get it down to 0, but that's kind of unlikely, but it's not impossible. So, what I thought was, why don't we Quinjet? And then some of the time we can go, like, you know, if we have Quinjet, Zabu, and then we Moon Girl at any point, the cards that got added are suddenly 2 costs, right? And a 2-cost Enchantress into a 2-cost Typhoid, into whatever, like an Abomination and even just like a Luke Cage, totally fine, right? Like totally a good set of plays. And I feel like I'm happier seeing the Oh, it was Wong. That's the thing is, okay, I think there is room for another 4 cost instead of Quinjet. Like, I'm not sold that this is the best card for this spot, but I don't think the answer was Wong as the other 4 cost. Because in general, it's really hard to, like, get value out of a Wong Hazmat because you want a Hazmat before 6 for Abomination reasons, and, like, thing is a fine hit, honestly. But I'd go Absorbing Man before I went Wong, I think. But this deck was really cool. I meant to cover it in the last video I did. I promised them clips that I would do it in this video. They're such a fucking supporter. I felt like a dickhead for having forgotten. But this deck ended up being really cool. I think that was my one change, was the Quinjet instead of the Wong. I could see it being a little different, but ultimately, more and more, we're seeing people I haven't seen Luke as much as I did day 1, and I cannot tell if that is because people just aren't drawing it, or because I'm not playing the -1 type decks, people aren't feeling the need to deploy Luke because they would sort of naturally do it on turn 6 now that they know not to do it before turn 6, or if people are already reverting to their natural tendency to not play tech cards. Because it could be either of those in completely equal measure. But as people err towards not playing Luke, you can err towards not playing Enchantress. Enchantress works here for the Typhoid Mary and the Lizard as well, and that's like why it's here, is because it has 2 positive hits outside of whatever your opponent is doing. But if you can almost go a little like lean on how you're playing your tech cards out, and that's really funny how quickly people get back to that kind of like, yeah, I don't know, it ain't worth it to play tech cards mentality. And then finally we have Killjoy's deck. So they sent this one in, and at first I kind of scoffed at Iron Lad, but I think that there's a really neat piece of tech going on here, which is it's tough to play Iron Lad with Enchantress because you can risk Iron Lad. Like, yes, you will naturally want to play around, playing Iron Lad into your Luke Cage or Zabu lane, but it isn't always possible. You don't always want to have to play around that. But with this, because you're playing Rogue instead, even if you hit your disenchant effect with Iron Lad, it's Rogue, so it's only going to be a positive effect. I like that. I like that quite a bit, actually. The only true bad hit is High Evo himself. Everything else is a perfectly fine to good hit. Being able to get multiple Hulk effects with the Iron Lad, super cool. Abomination, also a bad hit. So you have 2 bad hits, but everything else is like, neutral to quite positive. I always like an Iron Lad deck with that in mind. I like that it, uses a bunch of the new hype cards that people might have bought regardless of whether or not they're worth it. Hint, at least one of them wasn't, and I'm still unsure about the other one. It has the classic, like, Scorpion. It's interestingly, it forgoes Hazmat despite running Abomination. And I don't know exactly how I feel about that, but the fact that it has functionally kind of 2 Scorpions might offset that for me. I don't know what I would change. It might even be Shocker, funny enough. It might be Shocker that I would swap out for Hazmat. But ultimately, I like this list. I didn't have a lot of success with it, but I think that it is a list that you probably need more practice with than I was willing to give it. Like, I only gave it 10 games. I did not have success over those 10 games. And for no particular reason than it felt like our opponent was deploying more Schmeat onto the board. I think part of that comes with Rogue. I feel like I always feel like I'm just a little bit behind when I'm playing Rogue and not just winning that lane. And I'll say Iron Lad offsets that, but then sometimes Iron Lad hits Rogue and there's no ongoings in your opponent's lane, or it's like an armor. Like, okay, it's my unilateral armor effect now, idiot. So ultimately, really, really cool list. But I couldn't really get it to work, and I don't know if I'm missing something or if the list just needs more tuning, but I, again, like, appreciate y'all so much sending these in. So that is it, right? Yeah, we covered the other ones in the last video. So this is gonna be my final thoughts on High Evo, at least for now, because I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to alienate anyone who, like, didn't get the card or, like, isn't planning to get the card. This has all been a week of High Evo centric content, and so this is gonna be it. If you have any more questions, I don't want to just shut down and be like, no, but I'm not gonna probably make any more videos on it. So ask them either in the Discord or down below. I do a pretty good job of responding to anything that needs me to respond to it. I'd love to hear what you're playing. Honestly, like, the point is, High Evo is so open-ended that all kinds of, I mean, you saw just in this video and yesterday's how many really fucking cool decks came out of this one card. And I really appreciate that. I like that, I don't think there's been another card in Snap's history that has this quickly had this many decks spring up around it, and I appreciate it. I think that's really cool. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this content elucidating, enlightening, or enriching. I hope that you have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow.